15 months of house price rises. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's check out this article from the ABC about house prices continuing to rise. Now I know there are people out there that are hoping, begging, desperately, tying their entire personality and existence on the fact that it can't last forever and housing is going to come crashing down here in Australia. But the longer, we've been hearing this for half a decade at least from people. And the longer it goes on, the more skeptical I become about those claims being based on fact and simply, well, driven by an ideological wish, to be quite honest. Because I understand house prices do seem quite unreasonable, but it's a supply and demand issue fundamentally. Remember, half Australians live in three cities: Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. And it's a huge country. There's all this other great parts of the land. But think about, Matt Walsh has recently commented on how soft a bunch of Aussies are that were put into the wilderness, to survive alone. And I can't imagine I would do much better in that scenario. Because, a lot of us are just East Coasters, guys. We're living in the cities. We want our services. We want our utilities. We want our food. I mean, hopefully I'd last more than one day than some of the people did on that series. Frankly, as a parent, it'd probably be nice and relaxing to have a couple of days with pure silence without 7 kids. That, it'd be a holiday, but, you miss them after a while. So you've got to keep that in mind. When people say there's all this land in Australia, a lot of it's places where we don't want to live. There's a reason why you fly in and out from cities to the middle of nowhere to work. So let's check this one out. So I don't think they're going to address the supply and demand issues fundamentally in our property sector anytime soon. House prices have risen for the 15th month in a row. Here's what property values look like across the country. Okay. Australia's property market is showing no signs of slowing down, with data from CoreLogic showing property prices increased by 0.6% in April. It's the 15th month in a row that Australia's property prices have increased, and the national median dwelling value is now $779,000. Now, you've got to remember, people will compare property prices to wages, which, okay, cool, but you need to understand you have to compare property prices to household earnings. In a household nowadays, you need 2 people working. Okay? That's the reality of it. We've had that for quite a time. Rachel's grandfather, his wife worked, and he didn't want to use her money for the family to depend on as a matter of pride, so they put that into an investment property. They could buy another property just on his wife's income, which is fantastic. Think about it, that's like the first mover advantage. Previous generations where the wife actually started working, they got the advantage of using that money to put into another property. Nowadays, we all have to work, so that's the norm. So there's no longer a first mover advantage. It's a requirement now. That's why you have to compare it. Household incomes have changed. CoreLogic's head of research, Tim Lawless, said higher interest rates, worsening housing affordability and cost of living pressures are keeping property prices higher. Coupled with a mismatch of demand for housing and limited supply, Mr. Lawless warned that higher property prices are unlikely to ease in the near future. And here's what the property prices look like across the country. So, there you go. People aren't going to sell. You're not going to sell your house on a whim. You're going to fight tooth and nail to keep your house. This isn't like some shitcoin investor or some bullshit crypto investment that is meaningless. This is a home. This is different. So what's the most expensive city to buy in? Sydney remains the most expensive place to buy property in the country with a median house price of $1.4 million. Oh boy. But it's the West Australian capital of Perth that saw the biggest increase in property prices in April, while Melbourne was the only city to see a slight fall. And here's how much property prices have changed in each city in April. Sydney increased 0.4, Melbourne down 0.1, Brisbane increased by 0.9, Adelaide 1.3, Perth 2%, Hobart 0.3, Canberra 0.2, and Darwin 0.6. Everything's going up except good old Melbourne. That's the Did Ann Andrews impact? What do you reckon, guys? So, okay, Sydney, median value 1.4 million for a house. For a unit, the median value is 844 grand. Now, the problem with this is we've got to think long term. This is going to mean it's going to be harder for people to get into property. It means it's going to be later for people to settle down and start families. And I'd argue it's probably feeding into the increase in people that are not even having families, not even having kids. And what's that going to do for our population growth? Properties in Sydney continue to have the highest median prices for both houses and units. Sydney's property prices have held reasonably firm, increasing 0.4% each month for the past 3 months. Oh boy, 1.4 million bucks. All dwellings 1.1. I mean, you're not going to buy your starter house in Sydney, guys. Okay, you can't. You can't afford it. Not for $1.4 million. Is it worth it? Could you find other work opportunities somewhere else? Maybe you're going to have to move further away from your family. It just is the reality of things. Melbourne, the only capital that saw a slight drop, was the fourth highest median property prices. Let's have a look here. $1 million, $941,000. All units, $600,000, $783,000. And when we look at wages, average wages, particularly some of the ABS data, you need to look at the full-time adult wage. And that's getting closer to 90 grand, I think 100 grand. The last time I looked at it, you've got two of those in there. That's the only way these are affordable. Well, you can service these loans. You need two people on 6 figures. That's what you need to have. And I'd make the argument that you need to be educated and skilled to a level where you can earn that. I was talking to a Uber driver, and he was surprised that he could earn the same as an architect working for a practice. And I'm going, well, there you go, mate. That's what it is. Although being out on the road is quite stressful, and there's an element of risk there. So you can understand why they're rewarded for that. Brisbane, the median house price, 920 grand. Shit. It's gone nuts in Brizzy. It's not going to get any easier in Brisbane. The population growth that they have predicted in the Southeast Queensland Regional Plan and the amount of land that's coming available is not going to, it's not going to mean we'll have enough. We'll need to densify. We'll need to have more townhouses. People have to live in more units as well. Australia's changing, guys. It's changing. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but we've got to realize that. And, well, if you're in property, bloody well hold on to it. After previously recording strong gains, Brisbane property prices dipped below 1% in April for the first time in 12 months. We're seeing the pace of gains slow across the Brisbane market. Yeah, because it's just been insane. It has just been insane. Affordability pressures may be impacting the pace of growth across the city following a nearly $300,000 increase in values since the onset of COVID in March 2020, the largest dollar value increase of any capital. Well, if you're going to be, well, we had a lot of people move from Interstate too, and I can't complain about that. I'm part of the first Victorian wave that came up in the early 90s. Median house, $920,000. Units, 600,000. All dwellings, 827. I mean, you can still find affordable places to live in Brisbane, but you're going to have to move a little bit further out. You're going to have to move a bit further out. I mean, we're, about half an hour away from the city in Sunnybank. It's not too bad. I actually quite like being on the south side because we've got family down the Gold Coast. I can jump down the highway. If I need to go to Ipswich for work, I can jump on the road there, go out to Toowoomba. It's not too far away. And, the south side is the better side of Brisbane. We all know that. That is a well-known 100% fact. But, if I think about what stuff is going around in my street, we're approaching this in our street, which is insane. Which you'd think is insane. As a mid-sized capital city, Adelaide saw the second biggest value increase of the capital cities in April. The median was 779,000. Now 800 grand, units $500,000. Isn't it where people generally used to jump into a unit as a stepping stone, or a townhouse as a stepping stone into a bigger property? Is that what you've got to do? Perhaps it is. Honestly, perhaps it is. I mean, rents are going up. It's just, this is the thing. Rents are getting higher, and the people at the bottom are being squeezed out. That's the rental crisis. Other people on decent incomes, you're just having to fork up more money for rent. Perth remains the capital city with the largest growth in property prices. Dwelling values increased by 21.1% in the past year. Oh, whoa, look at that. Perth, $753,000 for the median property price for a house. I used to have a series I did on Twitch and on YouTube where we were looking at different cities for starter homes. Maybe I should bring that back. I mean, I've got so much work on at the moment that I've struggled to find time to create content, and I've got to squeeze it in. Maybe one night a week. We've got to get a carton of rum on a Friday or something and watch it. Well, not a carton, a 6-pack of rum. I can't afford a carton. All dwelling 720 grand. What about Hobart? Even that, 692,000 units, $500,000 again. It's going up. Canberra, 972, 592. Darwin, the only price with reasonable, you get a unit for under 400 grand. Now, if you're earning six figures and you've got a mortgage under 400 grand, you should be laughing, no matter what the rates are. That's the situation you want to be in. Something like this, at least to start. You know, that's what you want, guys. It's not about being rich. It's not about having loads of money. Well, in my perspective, as a semi-boomer, it's about stability and less stress. But it just shows how old I'm getting. You know? Oh, and the problem is, there's just demand, guys. People want to live in Canberra. People want to live in Hobart, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, everywhere. In the cities. They want to live there. So what do properties look like in regional Australia? Okay. Nearly all regions saw property prices rise in April. I mean, there you go, annual. Regional New South Wales, 730. Regional Victoria, 570. Regional Queensland, 629. Regional SA, 400 grand. Yeah, but you got to be careful where you move in the regions. Because, I mean, to be brutally honest, you don't want to be in a regional town where there's perhaps a substance abuse problem, where there's no opportunities for your children. I mean, that's what you need to consider. Perhaps I'm being too harsh here. I mean, it depends what regions you consider. I mean, honestly, Toowoomba in Queensland that would be regional, isn't it? But it's almost the second capital at this point. Well, it was. So is that it? That's all the article there. So there we go, guys. Let's have a bit of a chat about this one, eh? Now, this is always a bit nostalgic at me looking at property prices, particularly how much we've covered it on the channel. Now, there's people there that are saying it won't last. It's going to collapse. There's so many people in housing stress and mortgage stress, and I agree that exists. But you have to understand, if you have had to struggle, fight, and work your ass off just to get a deposit together, probably while paying rent, and all through that time, you would be in what's considered mortgage stress because you're putting it all into a deposit and you're spending a third of your income already on rental, and you found a way to get it all together. You are not going to sell on a whim. You're going to do everything you can to hold on to your property. You're going to be tenacious and fight for it because there's a class difference in Australia. You know, this is not going to change. We're not going to suddenly see housing affordable for future generations, regardless of what the politicians promise. Have you ever seen a politician throughout your lifespan make a promise or make a claim during the election or during the run-up to the election that's ever worked out? Oh, wait, can you let me know in the comments, guys? Sure, I mean, Dutton, he's looking at reducing immigration into the country to ease the pressure on the housing market. I honestly think that will be it's a smart strategic move to create a choice, a perceived choice between the two major parties going to the election. So you have people who are frustrated with this issue voting for Dutton, voting for the coalition. And Labor's coming up against the impact of this. You'll have the universities, the construction sector all concerned because, well, it's going to reduce demand for their services. Now, whichever way you lie on the issue, my argument is that in the long term, it's going to have little impact. There's still going to be population growth here in Australia. People are still going to want to come to Australia. It's still a pretty bloody good country compared to other parts of the world. You can live with all modern amenities. You can have a reasonably high quality, boring, safe life. And, you can have a future for your family. That's not going to go away. Now, housing supply is tied to land availability. If we look at the Southeast Queensland Regional Plan, smartly, they want to ensure we still have enough land to produce food. So that means we're going to see a densification of our housing stock, which is necessary. I mean, you look at these bloody houses they're building all over the place that are so close together, like a meter between each boundary. You might as well just build row houses. You might as well just go stuff it. Let's not pretend. Let's just build row houses. That's the missing middle. That's what we need to look at. And then you get more amenity. You build a bloody good wall that provides with sound insulation and impact insulation between the two dwellings. And then you get more square meterage that you can use in your house. And maybe you get a little bit bigger backyard or front yard. So that's where I see it's going, guys. We're going to see greater densification. Population growth will still continue. The demand will still be there here in Australia. It's just there's going to be a class divide. You'll have people that are in property and people that are not. So what do? Do you sit and whinge and blame others and put the mantle of constant victim mentality on you, which I see so many doing, which is why I got off Twitter, because it just pissed me off so much seeing that. Or are you going to find a way to, sort it out? You tell me. I'm sure most of the viewers of this channel will already have found a way to sort it out. We got a lot of people in the trades, a lot of professionals that are not going to be victim blaming. That will already have a house, already working towards getting a house, or just go and stuff it, working 60 hours a week while they're younger or while they're older, and just get in. They'll find a way. I mean, we're 80% male audience here, and you got the women that are watching it that will be similar. So perhaps that's just the demo we have of the channel here. What do you reckon, guys? Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions. And, are we all property geniuses if we bought like a decade ago and are up 150% on a house? No, we're not. We're just lucky. You know that. Don't start writing that course up now. I'll see you next time.